Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And by Neil.
Hello.
To spend another week discussing for an hour something that none of us want to talk about and you don't want to listen to, and that probably warrants only a few minutes of conversation, but we'll probably do about an hour on. Are you all excited, guys? Paul, you excited?
Thrilled.
Neil, you excited?
Super pumped.
Okay, let's do some moments of the week. Neil, you start us off.
Oh, there's been so many, Joey. So many this week. I am going to plump for... Actually, it's quite an odd one. Just Ben Stevenson coming on and once again showing that football isn't that hard if you're quite good at it. And that was him in a nutshell, really. Just came on, played well, pretty much sort of flawless, like he tends to be every time I've seen him. So, yeah, just good on him.
Is there a fear? Sorry, I don't want to piss on your chips straight away, but obviously I'm going to. Is there a bit of a fear that he's the wrong sort of perfect, if that makes sense?
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I'm certainly not of the opinion that he's suddenly the saviour or he will come in and fix everything. And I kind of also of sort of the opinion that you can have a good player who doesn't necessarily fit in to make the team better, but he can still be the best player on the pitch. And we had times last year when Maddison, we always wanted to see him on the pitch, but sometimes it was at a detriment to the team. And there's potential that could be the same for Stevenson. It just doesn't quite work for the dynamic. But as far as doing the things that most footballers should be able to do goes, yeah, he just came onto the pitch, got the ball, controlled it without having to think about it, played simple passes, played good passes, and just showed that you got a load of players there on that pitch, probably getting played a lot more than him, and he showed them really how it was done.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like one in the eye for Vladimir Gadjev there, which I guess we'll come to. Paul, your moment of the week?
Jody Jones is a left-footed footballer. That's it. Stop slagging him off for not having a right foot. Many players have had great careers with using their other foot for purely standing on. Slagging Jody Jones off on Saturday for being only one-footed is missing the bigger picture by so far it fucking hurts. I didn't hear anyone ring up the radio and go, you know, Carl Reid, not only is he one-footed, he's shit. And he's 10 years older than Jody Jones. So the next person who thinks about going, oh, Jody Jones, he really needs to learn how to use his right foot, maybe think, why did I notice Jody Jones so much? Oh, that was it. Because he was one of the only players trying to do something. He was the only player trying to take players on. Yes, it didn't quite work, but he's 18. It's like, for fuck's sake, if the kid was a genius, two-footed, he wouldn't be at Cov.
Mark Marshall. That's the standard.
Exactly, yeah. And he's not at Cov, so point well made. Yeah.
Oh, it's just some of the things that you can look at and just think, just slagging off an 18-year-old.
Who?
Just is who?
Yeah, who was slagging him off?
If you listen, you didn't listen to. If you listen to the phone in afterwards, and you see on Twitter the amount of people going, "Wow, Jody Jones really needs a right foot." And you're like, just that isn't. If that's what you're focusing on, that's the only thing going through your mind after some of the substitutions, after some of the performances, some senior players put in. And the first thing going for your ride is, if Jody Jones had a right foot, you've got to be asking yourself questions. One of those questions is, why is Marcus Tudgay playing in the number 10 role? Like, that should be one of your first questions. Not, why is our most talented player only talented with one foot? What about the other fuckers who are talented with neither?
All good questions. I'm going to lavish you with my moment of the week. Idle moments, I've been tempted to ponder over whether managers or players ever listen to our tiny little rinky-dink podcast. But this week, I am finally pretty sure that somebody is from within the club. And I actually think it's Tony Mowbray.
Really?
I do, yeah, because he would seem to be on a one-man trolling crusade against Paul with everything that he says and does. Specifically this week, his comment that, and I know that I'm stealing your thunder here a little bit, Paul, with the sort of Mowbray press conference soapbox moment. But this week he said that if the players weren't careful, he'd have to change the team if they didn't book their ideas.
There's certainly an inverse pattern going on, isn't there? Where whatever, good on him.
Yeah, I think one of us last week might have said it would be funny if they just sort of, as a existential show of how redundant football press conferences were, if managers just properly came out and took the piss. And it's glad to see that that's what he's done this week.
Well, his opening comments were that, wasn't it? You listened to his post-match interview?
No, I skimmed it.
His post-match interview was, I've just asked the lads why they weren't as good as they were at Oldham away last season.
Yeah,
I know it's a completely different team.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah. It's like there were two players who played in both games. One was the keeper and the other one was Biggie. The other night, it's just like, for fuck's sake, I'm trying to think of some connotations. It's a bit like me going to my wife going, "Oh, you remember those really nice cookies my ex-girlfriend made? Why don't you make those?" It's like, it's just. And then Reece Cook comes out and goes, "Oh, it's not fair. People are judging us against last season's team." That's exactly what Mowbray did. And the first thing he said was, "Well, this team's not as good as last season's team." It's like, well, you're the one who's built this season's team.
Yeah. It's, like I say, it's a work of comedic genius as far as I'm concerned. It's only second as a work of comedic genius behind being the first person in League One football history to play a 4-1-5 formation.
Sweet.
Which actually means that he's got the top two funniest things that any football manager has ever done. Perhaps for the less comedy enlightened Paul, you would like to fill people in on that particular hilarious ruse.
Well, at half-time, we were all sat there, and Pritchard turned to me and went, "Well, that's 45 minutes of our lives we won't get back." And you were like, "Yeah, but let's see what he does second half." And then saw Ruben Lamela stood there, and it was like, okay, so he's taken off Kyle Reid because he's been rubbish, or he's taken off sort of Tudgike, he realises he can't play as a number 10. No, he's taken off Gadjev. And it was like, okay, so Gadjev, who was awful in the first half, it's like, okay, he must be injured. And obviously he doesn't have any of them. I didn't know that. I hadn't looked at the bench. It was like, okay, Gadjev must be injured, and we can't have any other midfielders on the bench. So this is what he's done. Because we discussed it. I was like, maybe you could put Ricketts in midfield, but obviously what he's tried to do is he's gone for his 4-2-3-1, but he's decided to put Jody Jones as one of his two in central midfield. I can't really see how this is going to work, but let's give it some time. Oh, Oldham have nearly scored. Oh, Oldham have nearly scored. Oh, Oldham have nearly scored. Oh, Oldham are running through our midfield. Biggie can't seem to do anything to stop. Oh, Biggie's got booked because he's tried to drag a player back. Our right back's done some crazy kamikaze tackle because he's now got three of them against him. And then,
quickly, I hope this is real time and that you're going to do the full 45 minutes.
Well, then after about 20 minutes, it's like Stevenson's warming up. Stevenson's on the bench. So this was a tactical decision to what? And then Stevenson comes on. We have two central midfielders again, and we look slightly better. Who knew? Who knew that having midfielders on the pitch would make? And it's like, I know we're going back to the post-match interview. It was like Mowbray, who's managed over 500-600 games, who's got a team promoted to the Premier League, who's managed Celtic and all this sort of stuff, who some people claim is the best managers in this division. Well, one thing I've learned is you need balance in your team. Like, you've just learnt that today, that you need balance of different types of players in a team to be successful.
To be fair, I believe in Paul, though, because that's been his career with it. He's so gung-ho. It's not the first time he's done maybe not that specific thing, but he doesn't seem to get the balance between you can have a good defence and a good attack. It's kind of one or the other with him. So every time we need a goal, it will be 6 attacking players on the pitch. He did that at the back end of his first season. He does it a lot. But it's always. But Saturday was particularly balmy because it just left us. It left us with nothing, and we had to put up with, like you say, 20 minutes of this quite obvious problem that he'd caused. And I don't know whether it was just sort of shame or something. He didn't want to change it quickly just in case people realised that he'd made a mistake. But it was sheer lunacy.
He also talks regularly about my teams concede 2 but score 3, doesn't he? He's proud of it, which I don't mind actually, but I think it has to be within a framework that might work, or that you might score a goal occasionally.
It was so dramatic though as well, because it was like we weren't that bad in the first half. We were. I know we hate it, but we were in control. They weren't very good, and we weren't very good, but we were at least in control. And half time, there came a point, like Paul said, where, well, what's he going to do next? How is he going to turn this from a being in control into something where we can actually push on and get some goals? But it was just like gung-ho from 45 minutes onwards. It was just stupid, absolutely stupid.
Well, the thing that got me was, like, he came out in the post-match interview, again, going back to that. He goes, well, what I thought, we had 4 attacking players, so I wanted to bring 5 attacking players. It's like, no, you've got 5 forwards. You know those fullbacks that you play against, when the opposition have 1 up front, your fullbacks are basically stood there doing fuck all. They could be attacking players as well. If you had attacking fullbacks instead of the 2 fullbacks you've got, if you'd have had Kelly Evans from the start, who in the second half burst into the box, if you used you're playing with 6 defensive players. Basically what you said is, we play with 4 attacking players. So the other 6 are ostensibly defensive. Now, you could, if you wanted to, give Gadjev the licence to go forward and join the attackers. That would give you 5 attackers. Or you could allow your fullbacks to go forward. That might even give you 7 attackers. Or 6 attackers. It's like, you don't have to just go, I'll bring Ruben Ramirez on, therefore I've got another attacker. You've got players on the pitch who can also, in the natural way they play, get up and down and give you the attacking options you need. It's like, the other thing that's going through my head, 'cause I listened to the post-match interview and went to buy some milk, and I was like, I really need to get this into my head, what you said. And it's like, we need goal scorers, and it's like, you do realise that Adam Armstrong, at the end of last season, in his final 13 games, only scored in 1 of those, which was the last game. You do realise that you took away Jim O'Brien, who was one of the players who created the goals for him. You do realise you haven't replaced Jim O'Brien. You haven't replaced the players who created the chances for the players who score. You've just bought people who potentially can score. But where is the creativity? It's like, you're slagging off the strikers for not scoring. I didn't see them miss chances. It's like, Sordell hasn't scored. You think about it, he's only going on a 1-match goalless streak. He scored the week before. It's like, people don't score every game. It's just, you've got to give people chance. And even in that game, Sordell only played 60 minutes up front. For 1.5 an hour, he played on the left wing. And Tudgay went up front. It's just, give people 90 minutes. A striker might do chuffle for 89 minutes and score the winner in the 90th minute. But he's not going to do that on the left wing.
He was good on the left.
He was better on the left. Good's probably an overstatement. He was better. But that's only because before that, he had Kyle Reid on the left. Now, I've never seen you play football, Neil. I'd put you on the left wing above Kyle Reid. Kyle Reid was useless.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. And the combination between him and Page was just, oh, God, it looked like they'd never met. It was like Page would play a pass and Reid would be stood there going, well, who was that for? And they did that all, it was like, looked like they'd never trained together. There was no understanding on that side. Jerry Sterry doesn't go over the halfway line, so there was no combination between him and Jones. It's just...
Team of the week.
Team of the week.
Yeah, Team of the week.
I'll tell you where that's come from. I was trying to pin it down where that's come from. The Press Association report actually put him down as the impressive Sterry went off at half-time, or just after half-time. So they've seen the word impressive. Ooh, he must be good. No, watch the game, people. He had to go off 5 minutes after half-time because he was collapsed. He collapsed. So
Neil, I'd actually like to hear your rebuttal, because you sounded like you were disagreeing with Paul to an extent about Sordell and a couple of other things. What would you say in response?
Yeah, kind of about Sordell, but yeah, it's a warped opinion because of, like Paul said, Reiders on the left. I mean, I would laugh at some of the stuff if I wasn't so pissed off with us being bottom of the table, because some of the things that went on. Just, I look at that team and it's become like a catchphrase of mine, but it's just a bunch of players, a load of players on the pitch, kind of, and that there isn't a formation. I think we found that out just because there's no sort of dynamic in that team where they feel like they're playing in a formation. You can kind of follow it. There's nothing to follow because you've just got people all over the place or people hiding. I mean, Gadzev, I wouldn't say he was poor. I would say he was completely anonymous, which probably is poor, but he didn't have a chance to be poor because he was just so... is he hiding? I can't work it out. I don't know how a player in central midfield can hide when a short ball should be going to him quite a bit, but it just feels like he's nowhere to be seen at any point. So that's just that out of the way. But yeah, I mean, just on the Sordell thing, that kind of said to me just how mental football can be. The fact that makes no sense. Sordell on the left-hand side, no, nobody's going to have that. And yet he did come on and he put in 3 or 4 good balls into the box, which last season with more nippy or more sort of lively player in the box like Armstrong probably would have had a better chance of scoring. So I do disagree with Paul on that one. I think he was a good option on the left hand side, but that's not to say we should then play him on the left hand side next game, because it could just be the situation. And you can just go through the entire team, and we have one game when they play well in a position, and then the next game they play okay in a position, and it's just I sense absolutely no cohesion there at all between any of these players. And even Biggie had a good game against Millwall, you say. So, okay, we watched him. He wasn't helped, obviously, by the formation. But again, he wasn't outstanding. He was just there, you know. And it was hard for him because he was playing everybody was just trying to play sort of an individual game, and it doesn't work. And it just frustrates me so much because I know, like, we were not supposed to compare to last season, according to who said it? I can get confused. Reece Charles Cook said we're not allowed to compare to last season. Well, I'm going to compare to last season because we should have gone up. So I'm comparing, and there isn't any comparison. This is not a team. Don't know what's going to happen.
Well, I sort of understand what you're saying about Biggie. I feel sorry for Biggie because he's the player alongside him, I say, with Gadjef was just diabolical. I mean, I think you're being kind by saying he was on the amount. I mean, at one point, I think he just passed the ball straight out of play or something. And it was I can't believe that guy's played at international level, or the amount of praise that people were heaping on him last season about how good he was. I just can't. I've yet to see him play so well. You're thinking this guy deserves that much kudos. I'm being harsh on him, but it just doesn't look. Maybe it's just the fact he's never played at this level before, and it's just all a bit too frantic for him.
I think it's the idea of him. That's why he's in the team at the moment. It's the idea of Gadsev, which I think we've all got this sort of caricature in our mind of who he could potentially be, and he's not living up to it at all. But the one part I did want to see from him when he came in, like, even if he wasn't very good at football, I wanted he's got a big beard and stuff, and he looks cross. So I wanted like a combative midfielder, and he's not even that. The only time he got involved was when he deliberately fouled someone because he made a ridiculous mistake. It's worrying, really worrying.
And then we're the only country in the world who'd play Tudgay as a number 10. Like, Argentina played like Riquelme, but then you listen to the post-match interview and it all makes sense. The reason we're playing Tudgay is because he gives us a physical presence when we're defending corners. And I bet the Colombian manager never thought to himself, I shouldn't be playing Carlos Valderrama. I should be playing a tall guy in my number 10. Not so when we have the ball he can cut defenders apart with a quality bit of football. What I need is someone to head the ball away when we're defending corners. It's like the number 10 is so critical to the way. If you're going to play that system, the number 10 should be the ball-playing genius of the side. You know, that's why it's the number 10. You give it to Baggio, Georgie Hadji, the number 10.
Georgie Hadji,
not Marcus Tudgay. But he was, no, Neil. He wasn't that good because he only had a left foot. If he could have kicked the ball with his right foot, imagine the career he'd have had.
Don't you just sort of hate being angry all the time? I really hate it because I sort of try and see myself as a listener, or as if that's a big thing, but like someone who listens to this podcast, and you're like, oh, let's give them something, let's at least try and be funny. But it's just, we're bottom of League One. Seriously, that is just so bad. And there's only one way to be, isn't there? Angry? You can't rationalise this.
Mate, when I listen to post, I know we shouldn't talk about the post-match interview. I know. when I watched the game, it was like, I turned to Pritchard after about 60 minutes before he brought Stevenson on, and I'll take 0-0 now. I'll take 0-0, and we're not going to get in the playoffs. And he was like, don't you feel depressed saying that? I went, what do you mean? I went, what, do you think we're going to win this? He went, no, I understand why you're saying it, but doesn't it depress you to say it? And it was like, well, yeah, but I'm looking at the situation, and people as you know, I ask people on Twitter to ask us questions, and, you know, quite a lot of them are sort of just silly questions. Some of them are sort of really sort of quite good ones. And one of them is just the fact that if you're going to play, I don't think Mowbray knows what his best team is, and that's clear. But even if he's going to play 4-2-3-1, which got him so much success last season, I don't see a player in the squad who can really play the number 10 role. So I don't see what he's brought in sort of squad-wise. And I know he's been hindered and all that jazz, but then he comes out and goes, well, I'll try to bring those players in, but they've gone to the Championship. And you're like, well, maybe you were setting your standards too high. Maybe you shouldn't be looking for, hanging your hat on Premiership loans. It's like maybe you should be looking around and seeing what the other options are, because, you know, the lad from Chelsea who's gone to play in the Championship, maybe he's just Championship quality, and that's why he's ended up in the Championship. But maybe, people aren't jumping over themselves to come down to League One.
Yeah, but come on, behave yourself for a second. If we'd have, it's what we ended up doing. He should be aiming high. We'd have gone mental if we'd have done all of our business in August, and it'd have been old fucking League One scrappers knocking about. That's not to say that he didn't do it isn't a tragedy what happened in the transfer window. God, that's unnecessarily hyperbolic, isn't it? It's not a tragedy. It's shit. But you can't say, oh, you aimed too high. That's ridiculous. It's like saying you shouldn't aim to go up.
No, but what I'm saying is, if all your targets, every single one of your top targets, is like, it's like, yeah, but you're not going to get all of your top targets.
Yeah, but he said himself, he lost out on 6 centre halves. So the first one is presumably Ben Turner or whoever it is, who you really would be lucky to get, and then you tick off the list. And I do think, as much of a cock-up as the transfer window was, I think he's probably had a big list of players and lost them all. I don't think he's had Calvin Wilson on his list and gone, oh, fucking hell, we haven't signed him, what do we do?
Well, I don't think, but what I mean is, it's amazing how many of those players on the list have ended up in the Championship. It's like, as someone said earlier, well, I was talking before, we got most of the players who are, who were kicking around League One he wanted, and it's just a case of, there's no point coming on the radio and go, well, I went to Chelsea and the two lads, it's like, who cares? They've gone.
And I agree with that. Yeah, I massively,
If you keep coming on and going, well, last season I had Adam Armstrong and he got 20 goals, and this shower of shit can't score, if I was one of the strikers, I'd be like, well, why did you bring me in then?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Well, that's
you keep slagging me off.
Yeah.
And you keep going, well, he hasn't scored, so I'm going to drop him. It's like, I scored against Millwall. I didn't score in this one game when I was fucking isolated due to the fact that you played Tudguy as a number 10 behind me and Kyle Reid on the left wing, who just didn't involve himself in the game. I didn't miss any chances. It's not like Marvin Sordell's come off and gone, well, I missed 8 sitters. He didn't have a shot because he didn't have a chance. We didn't create anything for him. And he's slagging off the guy who didn't have a chance to score. It's like, well, maybe there's something else wrong. Maybe the fact that you didn't create a chance for him is more of an issue than Marvin Sordell not scoring. That's where I'm now coming from. It's like, I'm not going to slag off the strikers for not scoring because he didn't miss any chances. He didn't have any chances to miss. And you just like, well, how's he meant to score? He's not Ronaldo. He's not Messi. He's not going to skin 10 players. You've got to create chances for Marvin Sordell to score, or Dan Agai, or Andre Wright. It's like, you're not going to bring in a striker. We're looking at Lucio Becchio, who's like 33 in December, who hasn't played for like I think he's played 13 games in 3 years. And you're like, well, how is he going to be any better than what you've got? Give one of your strikers 10 games and go, okay, I don't expect you to score in 6 of them, but I'd like you to score in the other 4 or whatever. But going, oh, you've played 60 minutes up front, I lobbed you on the left wing, and now you're going to be dropped because you haven't scored. So what? Our strikers get 60 minutes up front, and if they haven't scored, they're taken away. It's like, that's not fair on anyone. It's like, how, you just think about sort of what we've gone through over the years. It's like, you had Huckerby and Dion, you had a partnership who played together. They got to learn how each other played. You get systems, you get players you play together. And you're like, yeah, you know how each other play. And the way that Mowbray's like, well, you haven't played well for 90 minutes, so you're dropped, and I'm bringing someone else in. I'm going to move you from the right to the left because why not? And you, who played up front, I'm going to play you as a number 10 next and play someone else in front of you. You four will go and work out a system, and you can sit on the pitch going, well, what the fuck do we do now? And it's like when we went to 4-1-5, it's like people are slagging off Lemares. It's like he's come on, he's like on the right wing with no one around him again. Just sort of, well, am I meant to play 1-2s with Tub Guy, am I? It's like, well, I need runners. At my best last season, I had Murphy, Armstrong and Jim O'Brien running for me. Now I've got no one running for me. Well, who the hell am I meant to pass the ball to? It's just, like, the whole thing's fucked. You're looking at it going, we don't, as Neil said, we don't have a system. We don't have a style of play. But sorry, we do. We pass the ball around the back six. That's our style of play. We play with 6 defensive players and 4 attacking ones. And it's just like, well, just how about letting your fullbacks get forward? How about not having 2 defensive midfielders? Who are we playing against? Who's that frightening? You're playing with 2 anchor men. Play with one. Let the other one bomb into the box. If he doesn't score, so fucking what? It's like last season we got lucky with Armstrong, but don't keep talking about it. It's a bit like me having a one-night stand with Britney Spears and banging on it for the next 20 years. No one cares. It's happened. He's not here anymore.
That's 2 analogies that you've done in this podcast that have actually worked. Do you realise that?
Staying in the room?
No. It's just a case of like, as Neil said, I'd love it if we were top. I'd love it if we were top. And we loved it last season. You listened to some of the parts last season when we were top. We were talking about winning promotion. I remember sitting in this chair talking to you two about us winning promotion. Mm-hmm. Now, we're bottom of the table. We're playing shit. We haven't scored in the first half of 4 home games. And we haven't played against teams who are good. We've played against teams who will probably start, yeah. Yeah, we haven't played anyone yet. And it's just like, you can't think of it positively. And people are going about, the fans now having to go at CC because we're bottom and they weren't this time last season when we were top. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, yeah, they're crap owners and we need to get rid of them. But at the end of the day, it's like Mowbray has to answer some questions because the guy who last week was quoting Guardiola doesn't go into a game where he's only got one player on the pitch who can pass to a teammate. It's like, that's just, what the fuck are you doing? I don't have any football qualifications or coaching badges. I've watched football over the years. I know you don't play with one midfielder because you're going to get overrun. It's just clear as mud. It's going to happen. It's just like, the fuck are you doing?
You okay, Hearn?
Oh, just the whole club is doing my nutting. You just think, well, you know, you hear the rumours about Wasps apparently are going to kick us out at the end of the season. You're like, when do we just when do we just go, look, this is just pointless. I'm just wasting my life supporting a shit football club where the owners don't give a shit. Not convinced the manager has a clue what he's doing at the moment. And we've seen managers go through these stages before where they just start panicking. And to me, just like the whole, we weren't scoring, so I just lobbed another striker on. You do that with 10 minutes to go if you're like 2-0 down and you always need to win. But if you're 2-0 down, shove that other striker on. Go for it. At half time in a game which has been pretty even, don't think you can sacrifice midfield to score goals. Who the fuck's giving the ball to your strikers if you don't have anyone in midfield to win the ball for you? It's just like fucking basics.
He's right, you know.
Yeah. Can we go all the way back to Luciano Becchio for a second, please?
So what's this? I haven't been online all day. What's going on?
He is on trial. He played in an under-23 games today, under-23s game today. And whilst the club haven't explicitly said it, he does feel like it might have been a competition where fans were allowed to pick one out-of-contract player and then the club had to bring him in on trial. He's that guy, isn't he? Where you recognise his name from having scored goals at some point in the past, indeterminate, and that you fancy him despite the fact that when you look at his Wikipedia page, I think is it 1 goal in 3 years?
It's Darius Henderson, isn't it?
Yeah.
it's him all over again.
He scored goals in the past. So, and I've heard his name. So he's only 32. Paul says that he's 33 in December. Neil, is it a potential signing that excites you?
No. I don't know what can excite me anymore, because it's like like Paul said, you just put one more in the team. How does that fix everything else that's going on around him? Unless you put someone who is so good that they can just get the ball and just keep scoring goals and just like ignore everything else that's going on around them. Because it is so much more than just one player. And even if you put Adam Armstrong, the beloved Adam Armstrong, in that team, last season, like you said, we had O'Brien, we had Maddison, we had Murphy, we had players around him feeding him. You put him in the team this year, he'll just do what Sordell does. And there's potential that he could get the ball and do something magical, but he only did that on occasion last year. Most of the time, goals were created for him. So, no, Becchio, I don't know. It just feels like we're adding more and more weight to that attacking lineup in the hope that they might get a goal. And if they get a goal within their first game or two, suddenly they're the saviour. But it's just...
for me...
It's so much more than that.
It's becoming so Presley that it's like a pastiche. Somebody, I can't remember who it was on Twitter that said it, and it's a good point as far as I'm concerned. Somebody said, instead of this constant search for the correct answer out there, why not just try and either keep the squad you've got, or if it was up to me, trim down the squad that you've got ever so slightly. I've got nothing against Andre Wright, but send Andre Wright back to West Brom and just cut your squad down and go, right, I'm limiting myself to what options I've got available, and I'm going to play within X number of systems, and there are certain people who can fit them systems, and I'm going to coach the players that I've got. And I imagine that, I'm not saying that's not going on now, but this exhaustive search to try and find another striker, spend your time and energy on coaching the players that you've got, that you presumably brought in because they had some value or added some value to the team. But this constant, it's not working, we'll just get another player in, it's tiresome.
But you got to remember, Joey, that all these players are absolutely hammering the goals in during the week in training.
Yeah.
But it's just, as you know, I completely agree. I just think I'm not particularly Sordell's greatest fan. I have no idea if he's good or bad, but I would give him the next 10 games. And I think it's going to play on your mind, that pressure of, if I don't score, I'm going to get slagged off or I'm going to be dropped. I think you just almost then start just shooting from anywhere. You're then so tense that every goal just means that much more. And I've never been a professional striker. I could be completely wrong, but I get the feeling that most strikers are at their best when they don't have a tremendous amount of pressure on them all the fucking time. And also, it's like Dan Agai did score and then he got dropped about 2 games later. So, I haven't seen anything wrong in him to see him dropped or moved wide. Why not? He scored against Bradford. He had a good game. Why isn't he still in the team?
It's all arbitrary, isn't it? Because I don't think anybody is out of the team at the moment that you go, why aren't they in the team? But I just would like to see a settled team. And that doesn't mean that they have to be the exact same 11 every single week. But it would be nice to see a central midfield partnership and a striker at the very least who were fixed in the team. Do you know what I mean? Even if it was just a spine of the team that were absolutely fixed, that would go some way to creating some sort of team element to it. Because as much as you're saying about Sordell, I completely agree. But I think there's the added thing of, well, am I playing on the left? Am I playing in the middle? What? And I think that contributes to my massivest, favouriteest bugbear about his forward players not getting in the box. If you have to constantly be remembering where your role is within that 3 because you're constantly playing different bits of it, I think it must get jarring. That's probably letting him off too easy.
But the other thing is, I said, it's like he has 2 young attacking fullbacks already at the club, but he doesn't play either of them. I mean, when Kelly Evans came on, he was getting into the box. He was causing problems because he was playing wide. And when you've got either Ruben Ramirez or Jody Jones on the right, they want to naturally tuck in. Like, there's no issue with that, because at least they're driving at goal. But then you need someone to play out wide behind them. And, like, I hope Sterry's fine, obviously. But he wasn't providing us that width on the right. And it wasn't like they had a tricky winger he was up against. And I know I'm not Lewis Page's biggest fan, but it's just I don't see the point of having a stoic left-back stood there on loan from West Ham. He's not getting games. He's not getting challenged one-on-one against some brilliant flying winger. So why not just play Haynes, who we know can be more offensive, who can get her into and around the box? It's just, he's gone for a very defensive system. And that's fine, because almost like where you've managed at a higher level, where you're worried about conceding goals. At League One's, like, we don't need that many defensive players. We don't need defensive fullbacks. What we need is attacking fullbacks at this moment, especially against teams like Oldham, who for the first 45 minutes until they saw our substitution at half time and thought, woohoo! They were just like stood there in bank of 5 and a bank of 4, and they basically gave us the ball up until their sort of defensive third, and then went, okay, we'll stop you here. And they did. They stopped us because we're not that great at intricate football. Who knew? So it's just like, well, the second half, one thing I did really notice about the second half, it was so open, because Oldham, when they realised that what we were doing, actually tried to attack us. And when we went back to and brought Stevenson on, it was more of a balanced, it was quite an open but balanced game. Both teams were trying to attack and trying to score. And the other thing about the whole Adam Armstrong, look at Oldham. Oldham, I think, have only scored one more goal than us. If they'd have had Adam Armstrong or a player of his ilk, they'd have rattled us about 4 or 5-0. It's like, you know, it's just like every team in League One is lacking a decent striker because we're in League One. What you need is goals from everywhere on the pitch. Harking on about this one mythical goal scorer. It's like, you know, teams have got promoted where 5 or 6 players have got 8 or 9 goals. Didn't Bradley Deck get about 10 goals last season from midfield?
More than that. So
you're like, well, why can't we just get someone else? You know, as I said previously, it's like you've signed Kyle Reid. He's never scored goals in his entire career, and you're shocked at the fact he doesn't score goals. Where's the surprise in that? It's just we knew this when we looked at the squad, when we looked at the players he was bringing in. You looked at them and you were like, there's not enough goals in this team. So what are they going to do? And there's still not enough. But as I said, they're not missing chances. Like, I know we had 19 shots, most of them from outside the area. It's just like, you can always, you know, have 30 shots from outside the area. Doesn't matter. It's like Oldham's goalkeeper didn't dive for any of them. It was like, well, that's going wide. It's like, well, you got to be putting pressure on Oldham's goalkeeper. Oldham kept a very easy clean sheet and probably should have beaten us. Like, fucking, that's after Northampton should have beaten us. After Berry missed a sitter in the last minute. You know, it's just like, this is just, where are we going from here? It's like Gillingham's a very difficult game. Then it's AFC Wimbledon in front of about 6 people who can be bothered to turn up on a Wednesday night. It's just, the club needs something.
Even by your standards, this is one of the huffiest I've ever heard you be.
Mate, I know, you know, we used to drive back from and people go, this is the worst team I've seen. This is the worst team we've ever seen. And do you want my proof for that? We're bottom of League One after 8 games, where we've scored 3 goals. There's no hyperbole about this. This is clearly the worst team we've ever had, because this is the lowest my team's ever been. And I don't see, as you say, it's like, at least if we had 3 players injured, you were like, oh, okay, I'm not, but at least we're going to bring back so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. It's just like, well, I couldn't pick, I struggle to pick my starting 11 out of that lot, and a system that I would, because it's not even like, okay, fuck it, we'll go back to 4-4-2. You don't have a right winger, so you're like, okay, we can't go to the basics, but we'll play 4-2-3-1. I don't have a number 10. Oh, okay, we'll do that. We don't, you know, every system you've got, apart from, strangely enough, 3-4-3, which he sort of does have the players for, you don't have a sort of system you can sort of go, oh, okay, I'd play these players in that position. There's, you know, I don't know what you two think, but if it's like, oh, Neil, you're going to be Coventry City manager for the Millwall game, what would you do? What system would you play?
I would roll a dice on each position. and no, but seriously, it's all bollocks. It is. I mean, you look at Sheffield United. they actually did pretty much what Mowbray's been doing, which was they lost their first few games. They were constantly tinkering until they came across a game where they won. And then next thing you know, you've suddenly got a unit which feels comfortable. And it's like, has that been created by design, or is that just by luck, or what? But you don't know how this comes about, and that's what gets me more. But at least if you've got a bunch of players, and by a bunch of players I mean players that you kind of trust, like last season, even from within 2 games in, you could kind of feel the players you liked and where you want to put them in a position. At least if you've got that, there's going to be an element of trust there. And you can kind of say, okay, if they lose a game, they lose a game, but I still know this lot are good. I don't know how we pick a team out of this lot. And I don't know how we get out of this problem and this situation. And that's really, really galling, because I'm going to say it, Mowbray's caused this. And I know it, but I know he's kind of says, I've kind of, I let these people go because I didn't, think they were good enough, like Reilly Johnson, or he didn't want him in his team, or Aaron Martin, and he had plans for what we were going to do with the money. But has that made our squad better? Letting go, I know he had to let go of some players, but has letting go these players made us any better? It's not. It's kind of his own doing, isn't it? He's done this, and now he's the only one who can really fix it. And we're all sat here just sort of guessing. And the problem is he's probably guessing as well. So I honestly don't know. And I don't. We can sit here talk for another half an hour. Oh God, let's hope we don't.
We're really not going to do that, guys.
About what you could change. But when I look at it, I see a football team, load of players, and we've discussed it already, but it makes no sense to put Sordell on the left. But when we did, we looked probably the most potent we did in the whole game. Work that one out.
I think, to your point there, it's probably about time that we move on, unless there are any burningly desperate things to get off your chest.
It's not possible.
No, good.
No.
Okay. Let's drop in a plug for the Football Blogging Awards. So again, phenomenal, massive, genuine, heartfelt thank yous to everyone that's bothered to vote via Twitter and vote via their website, which is footballbloggingawards.co.uk. You can go on and vote through there as well if you haven't done so already, or you haven't got a Twitter, or you can do both. Voting closes at the end of this week, I think.
Yes.
And then we'll stop hassling you for votes. There'll be, if we are fortunate enough to get through, there'll be a second round, but we'll just post a thing and we won't keep banging on about it. We just want the 2 or 3 free drinks that we effectively pay for.
It'll be worth it.
It will be worth it, yeah. But no, all jokes aside, thank you so much for taking the time to do it. It means a lot to us. We've got Gillingham next week. Another proper test, as far as I'm concerned, which I think really has only been the second test we've had this season, after Millwall away, and then they ended up being shite.
Mm.
Where
are they in the league? Gillingham.
Gillingham are 13th.
Oh God,
yeah,
testy.
Yeah, they're a strange old team. They've got the best player, well, what is widely considered to be the best player in the league in
Cody McDonald.
Cody McDonald, thank you, Neil. That's 10 points to you. Yeah, how predictable am I? Neil, Paul, you even said Bradley Dack earlier.
I know. I thought you were going to link through, but
no, I was hoping you'd say Bradley Dack, so I could say Cody McDonald, obviously. But Neil,
I've spoilt your joke.
No, you were saying. Well, I spoilt my own joke about 5 years ago when I first started making it. And I could maybe just get some new jokes. Cody McDonald is there. He's got 2 goals, obviously. I imagine he's only played 1 game, because that's the sort of strike rate that Cody McDonald will give you. They've got Bradley Dack, as you mentioned. He's also got 2 goals. They've got J. Emmanuel Thomas, who's got 5. That's an all right.
How come they're so low in the table then? If they've managed to score all of 8 goals.
I don't really know, mate. It's as simple as that. Ask Sideways Sammy, I reckon. I know
why.
Go on.
Well, it's obvious they've let him 15, which is most in the division.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. They are the 3rd top scorers in the league and the worst goal conceders, which is amazing because you would have thought that would have been Peterborough, although actually Peterborough aren't far behind.
I'll let it again.
Yeah, Peterborough are like the me of League One in terms of being predictable. Aside from that, They also have Coventry City favourite Rory Donnelly up front, who's got 1 goal so far.
They've all got goals, haven't they?
Yeah, there's there's a handful of them that have got that have done some goals. They've got, I don't know, I'm kind of clutching at straws now. They've got Pine Mash Shops, Paul Konchesky. I don't even know if he's played.
Is he now got hair?
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, he has actually. Yeah. Is he grey?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I mean, I think they're not bad, are they?
Got 0-0 written all over it, isn't it?
Do you reckon?
No.
I think it. I think it'll be a ploughing. I think they're going to kick. I really think they're going to kick us in.
Sorry, one last comment about the game that we saw on Saturday. Oldham. Reece Charles Cook played really well, and I gave him my man of the match because without him, I haven't seen the highlights back, without him playing, and he didn't make any spectacular saves, but what he did was he kept pushing the ball away from the danger area with the saves he made. If he'd have been, if he'd have mistimed them, they probably would have had about 3 tap-ins. So, all kudos to Reece Charles Cook for being one of the only players who
good
played
distribution
well
as well.
Yeah, some of his throwouts were brilliant, and so I think I wasn't overly impressed with our defence. I know a lot of people thought Jordan Turnbull had a really good game. I was less than impressed, but I thought Reece Charles Cook had a really good game and deserves mention.
He's good, isn't he? It's odd. It's odd sometimes trying to compare him. Not that it's healthy to or wise to comparing him to some of the other classic keepers that we've had, because he's the polar opposite, isn't he? He's the least showy keeper I've seen in a while. There are no spectacular worldy saves, are there? It's all of the basic non-showy stuff that's good with him, isn't it?
It's strange because you would expect him to be all show, wouldn't you? Because that's sort of the personality he is, and all the vines and stuff you see of him flicking the ball around. And yet, like you say, it's the handling, it's the distribution, it's the kicking, it's all that sort of stuff, which is boring, but he's really sort of good at.
And I don't think I'm not saying that he's not capable of making good saves either. I think he's a really good keeper, but that he doesn't. There's that brilliant English mentality thing of, I guess, of Joe Hart to a certain extent. I think English people, we want world-class saves, don't we? As opposed to the boring, prosaic, stop the shot in the first place approach. But yeah, there you go. That's my 2 pence about Reece Charles Cook that no one asked for.
We want David Seaman. That's what English people want.
Yeah, ponytail.
All the time.
Get Reece Charles Cook in a ponytail. There you go. That's a campaign for you. We all
that's Photoshop tonight.
Yeah. I genuinely earlier, somebody said Vladimir Gadjev, and it reminded me of all of the Gary McSheffrey, Reece Charles Cook and Carl Baker photoshops that I did where I put them in chef outfits. And I realised that I could do Vladimir Gadchev.
Yes.
But then I remembered that I'm a 31-year-old adult. Probably should have something better to do, even though I haven't really. Right, we've done Gillingham preview. We've plugged the Football Blogging Awards. We whinged about the Oldham game. That's a set menu of Lamptey, isn't it? Are we all done?
We're
No, it's one final. We're talking about Jordan Turnbull. Obviously, the major question he's put on Twitter today is Dumbledore or Gandalf? I just want a one-word answer. Don't need explanation. Joey, Dumbledore or Gandalf?
I'm going neither. Neil?
What are you on about? What is this?
Jordan Turnbull asking about who the best wizard is.
The greatest wizard, Dumbledore or Gandalf?
I've never watched. Are you talking Lord of the Rings?
The Lord of the Rings, Gandalf, and Harry Potter's Dumbledore.
Oh, I don't know. I've not read anything like that. I read atlases.
It's actually Atli. Is the atlas is. I've watched the Lord of the Rings films, but I'm not asked about them particularly. They were just on, and I don't know anything about Harry Potter. I'm sorry, that's why I said neither, because I've got no decent comparison point. I think you do know a bit about them, don't you, Paul? And you have got a bit of the lumbering wizard about you. You'd have to shed a few.
Oh, thank you.
You could pass for a wizard in a few years, I think.
Get a staff and just walk around in ropes.
Big wizard, yeah. Who would you go for out of them two?
I'm going for Gandalf because he's got a massive sword.
Yeah, But couldn't Dumbledore just get a sword and then... It feels like him, that feels ephemeral to me. Like he could, anybody could.
He could get, but I'm just going for Gandalf, okay? I did say I'm not
it's your question.
Yeah, I know, and I gave my own limits. I'm not explaining. I'm just going for Gandalf. And I'd also like Jordan Turnbull to have a first touch as well. Maybe one of the wizards could give him that.
What about...
God, I was really unimpressed with him. Neil, I know, sorry, but we're trying to finish. Neil, please, just your thoughts, because I'm yet to be impressed with the guy.
I don't really notice him. Maybe that probably is a bad thing. I don't really notice him at all at the moment. He's not your stereotypical defender all that you want in the middle of the fence, your Ben Turner type. He's just there. We've got too many of those there players, haven't we?
Mm. Well, and that was the thing, because Moby came out and go, I don't like Aaron Martin. I like my centre backs to be men. And you signed Jordan Turnbull, who doesn't seem to be overly physical or domineering. He's just, as you say, I think the other thing is, I know, again, it's sometimes where we're sat, but the ball came to him and he tried to take the ball out of the air and his first touch was woeful, but it made a really nice 5-yard pass to Lewis Page. And it's just one of those ones where if you're in the right area, you're just like, oh, that touch is terrible.
You're probably somewhere else.
You're probably somewhere else. You're like, that's a beautiful pass. You're like, oh.
It's only just occurred to me, actually.
Sorry, can you just call him Jürgen Torgbull? That's every time you go to say his name, it feels like that's about to come out, and then you stop yourself. But I kind of prefer that.
Jürgen Turnbull.
Jürgen Turnbull.
It just feels,
he's like Norwegian centre half.
Oh, I think that's been etched in stone, hasn't it? That's what his name is from now on. I think we know what this episode's being called as well.
Get that down.
That saves me a job. Oh dear. Right, okay. Yeah, all right, then I think we've done anything, haven't we? So, get on Twitter, get on footballbloggingawards.co.uk and do vote in, please. And that's it. So we'll be with you again after the Gillingham game. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, guys. Bye.